hello everyone, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning Fan Show. Thank you. Everyone's a fan of something, and we have got something for every fan, especially if you're a fan of those Battlebot badasses that just seem to leave chaos and destruction in their wake. It's like few words, few actions, but then all the drama. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about a certain bot that may have not had their ideal season as of right now, but this man and his bot, a bot that really doesn't have a gimmick, there's no flash, there's no flare, it just goes out, it kicks ass. It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE. Charges out to the ring, not even charges, just walks with a purpose out to the ring, goes in there, flips off the opponent, drops him with a stunner, 1, 2, 3, and leaves. I'm talking, of course, about Ray Billings of Tombstone. That's right, you guessed it. Ray Billings is my special guest this evening. We are on to episode 12 of this really spectacular season of Battlebots. You combat robotics enthusiasts, I gotta say, you have been spoiled this season. In my years of following and just fanning out and covering Battlebots, this one really has had everything. And the fact that Tombstone went up against Gruff, and Gruff took Ray Billings and that knockout machine the full 3 minutes? I mean, what? That doesn't happen. But Ray and I talk all about that and much, much more, including what keeps him coming back to the battle box. I mean, the man is a very decorated combatant, but not in your standard way. Like, Don Hudson has more giant nuts than there are technically seasons of Battlebots, as far as we're in, season 4 right now, and he's got like 6 giant nuts. And yes, of course, there were the Comedy Central days, but it seems like nobody really counts those anymore. But Ray Billings, he's been a champion, and now he is trying to replicate that success for once again, because there's been just some very unfortunate happenings. Last year, the biggest upset you've probably ever seen in your life. A 16-1 upset. Bombshell takes down Ray Billings, and it was Ray Billings' own chain that he got hung up on. I mean, if that's not being on the bad side of luck, I don't know what is. But he's always ranked number 1, if not top 2, going into each season. Nobody wants to face Tombstone except for the guys that are new to the game that want to face him just so they can say, hey, I fought Tombstone. And yet he comes back for more. He's got nothing to prove. He really doesn't. And that's what I love about Ray Billings. And him and I have a fantastic conversation. You're going to want to stick around for that. But let's go ahead and recap episode 11. So, as I mentioned, Tombstone gets the win by decision. I repeat, Tombstone gets a win by decision over Gruff. And although it was a loss for Gruff, I know that they say that there are no moral victories in the world of competition. But these guys held their heads extremely high, maybe even puffed out the chest a little bit when they walked back to that pit, because they took Ray Billings and his Tombstone the distance. Congratulations, Gruff, on that. Ray Billings and Tombstone 3-1, looking at the top 16. Will they be the top 8 or the bottom 8? I believe they will be in the top 8. How far in that top 8? Are they top 4 worthy? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Ribot lost to Sawblaze, but I think a lot of people are underappreciating and underestimating Ribot. These kids have created a great bot, and I think a lot of people kind of snicker and smirk at its design. But, we said the same thing about Kraken last year, and now there's been some tweaks to that design, and it came back, and it's been kind of a badass bot this season, right? So I think they could be onto something as well. It has a very effective weapon. Obviously, they have the respect of Jameson Go, driver and captain of Sawblaze. So Sawblaze gets another one in the win column. Ribot will have to go back to the drawing board and see how they will fare headed into the final stretch of the regular season. Then we had Endgame get the upset over Cobalt, and I say that because Endgame has not had an ideal season either. And Cobalt is just a nasty bot. I would love to see this bot against Death Roll. And I know you're saying, but they lost to Endgame. Why wouldn't you want to see Endgame in Death Roll? It's because, okay, Tombstone lost to Sawblaze, and it's like one of those things where Tombstone lost to Rotator, and so I don't have anything against Rotator. And that doesn't really change how I view Tombstone. And I would still love to see Tombstone against several bots out there. It's not who you lose to or who you beat. It's the quality of the bot and its weapon and its design and its driver most of all. So Death Roll and Cobalt is a dream match I would like to see. And we will talk about that main event between Death Roll and Rotator in a minute here. Bombshell... if any bot is on the bad side of luck this season, it's got to be Bombshell. And if anybody's been on the right side of luck this season, it's Lockjaw. Don Hudson, by the hair of his chinny chin, gets the win by decision. And so Bombshell will have to go back to the drawing board. Looks like Don Hudson doing Don Hudson things as he gets another win looking at the top 16 now. And let's hear it for Al Kindle and Blacksmith with a win over Captain Shredderator, another team that you love to see them when they're doing great, but this season has just not been that season for them to do great. Another team that's been on the bad side of luck all season long. But Blacksmith and Al Kindle, I mean, he went out in that fight with a purpose, with a vengeance, and he gets a much needed win there. We'll see how he will fare in this final stretch of the regular season going into possibly the tournament of 16. And then Duck and Quantum. Look, Quantum is a bot that I don't think people realize just how good of a design this is, and that their driving is got to be top 5 out there right now in the battle box. But these guys threw Duck around like I have not seen Duck get thrown around, and it's grappler, right? I mean, we've seen Duck get flipped, we've seen him get bucked and brawled and thrown this way and that way by weapons, but I've never seen them dragged around the battle box like they were by Quantum. So Quantum gets that win. Hal Rucker is going to have to look to see, how he feels about Duck going into this final stretch of the regular season and his feelings about making it possibly to the top 16. But man, it was a great fight card, top to bottom. A few surprises, a couple of wins that needed to happen, that did happen. Obviously, Tombstone back in the win column, Lockjaw winning again, Blacksmith getting a much-needed win, Sawblaze continuing its winning ways, and Endgame getting a win, but is it too little too late? And you can ask yourself that as well with Blacksmith, is it too little too late? But Rotator and Death Roll, the fight goes the full 3 minutes, and I have not seen a bot pick apart another bot like Death Roll did to Rotator, unless it's Tombstone out there picking apart, name a bot, insert bot name here. And they did it. I mean, Death Roll, comeback bot of the year, hands down. I mean, if there is such an award, I might give them that award because this has been quite the run. So they are now 4-0. There's not many that are. Are they going to get that number 1 seed, or will it be Bite Force, or will it be Tombstone? I mean, the judges and the committee, I do not envy their position. I do not envy their job. They have their plates full. But props to Victor Soto and Rotator. It was a great fight. They hung in there, went the distance. But man, Death Roll, that is an opponent that I do not want to see at this point in the season. Because if I'm looking to get a quality win, I'm going to hope that they give me somebody else, because I don't know if I could do it. But it looks like Death Roll definitely going to get into that top 8. And top 4 maybe, but number 1, that's the big question here. So again, episode 11, fantastic fight card, top to bottom. Ray Billings joins me now. We had a fantastic conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy me and the king of kinetic energy, the man of Tombstone, Ray Billings. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now is the king of kinetic energy, one of the baddest men in the Battlebots. It is Ray Billings of Tombstone. Welcome back, Mr. Billings. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing great. It's always great when, obviously, we are past the midway point of another spectacular season of Battlebots and Robot Fighting Time. And each season brings its own set of new fighters, new drama, and then just a few surprises. And I gotta say, you have been one of the surprises, and that is we saw something we don't normally see, and that's a regular season loss. I mean,
yeah,
your rivalry with Rotator is quite something. I don't even know if people realize that it's a rivalry, but I certainly hope that we haven't seen the last of you two, because it makes for great TV, especially knowing how awesome you and Victor Soto are. But, you know, let's talk about the season so far. Obviously, you got back in the win column this last week. And so how do you feel looking back on 2019 and the different challenges it sort of presented to you as a builder and a driver?
It's been a great season so far. The team's really pulled together well on some of the issues we've had to keep the robot running. So I can't feel bad at all about how the season is going. I mean, obviously, anytime you get a loss, you got to look at the reasons why and whatnot. But I mean, it was a tough match against a tough opponent. I knew it was going to be that, and there was some unlucky breaks there that ended up being our downfall, but that's part of the game. That's part of what happens. So, Victor's a great guy. He's a great builder. I'm sure that we'll both be back next time, and I'd certainly be looking forward to a rematch. I don't know how he'd feel on it, but I'd be ready to do it again.
I feel like he's probably feeling pretty lucky that he got away the way that he did. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the countdown, but I feel like John's counting was a little quicker than the actual ticks on the clock. And I don't know if that was intended or not, but it made for some great drama.
The thing you got to remember about us as drivers and the people that are running the sport and people that are doing all the judging and everything else, at their core, they're still a fan of the sport. So all these people are excited and they're having a good time. And, did he count a little faster than I think he should have? Yeah, maybe. But honestly, I don't think it would have changed anything. At the end of the match, my robot is not moving and it's on fire. So it's pretty hard at that point in time to go, boy, I sure should have gone to a judge's decision and I'd have won that. I don't think I would. I don't think it changed the outcome of the results at all, other than saying I got a knockout against me, which is a really rare thing to have happen.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think it going the full 3 minutes would have changed who got the winner token at the end of it. But I guess, the fan in me and competitor in me wants to know from you, do you feel like you would have felt any different had it been a loss by judge's decision as opposed to a knockout?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, the match was a great match. It was awesome. I'm more excited to have been involved in such an awesome match than I'm worried about the loss one way or the other. I mean, it was sometimes shit happens. There isn't another way to put it, If you watch the match, there's the first couple of hits, and then after that, I'm upside down, so the bar's a little higher. And we had a weapon-to-weapon hit, and Victor's weapon bars are really thin. They're not heavy like mine are. And when the thin bar of his hit my tooth, they hit square in each other. I snapped his weapon bar off, but it almost cut the tooth in such a way that it split the tooth in half. And then my robot was out of balance because the tooth left on that one side. And all of the damage to me came from being out of balance and the robot simply shaking itself to death.
Yeah. It was, in my opinion, still, even after Witch Doctor Whiplash, I still think that you and Victor's fight is high up there for fight of the year, because just the dramatic element to it of here's this countdown happening, there's only a few seconds left, and we see something that we rarely see, and that's a Tombstone getting a knockout on itself instead of being the one to deliver the knockout. But I called you last week the Ricky Bobby of BattleBots. In other words, you're either first or last when it comes to your strategy and attitude and persona once that green light gets lit up, because we don't see you go the full 3 minutes a lot, and you either
not a lot, no,
you either dish out a phenomenal knockout or you get knocked the hell out. So is that a fair assessment, that you don't like to let it go to judge's decision? It's either all or nothing?
Well, anytime you're dealing with judges, it's in your best interest to not let it go to a judge's decision. You should try to get the knockout. That's the only for sure way to win. So, I always hope that that's what happens. But it's funny, when you're actually fighting, you don't even really think of those things. You're just trying to do the best, have the best match you can, put on the best show you can, and then just sort of let it all fall where it is at the end. It's not something you really think about while you're actually in the fight,
Yeah, and that's a very valid point. 3 minutes is an eternity to those of you that are competing, but then it's also over before you know it, once that green light goes. So.
It's funny how 3 minutes can go by really fast, but at the same point in time, something like 5 seconds can seem like it takes forever. So, it's the nature of combat. It's just there's nothing else like it.
So let me ask you, as far as the state of Ray Billings and Tombstone right now, obviously we still have the remainder of the 2019 season left to play out, but I really want to know from a fan perspective what it is that keeps Ray Billings coming back, because you are a winner. You have hoisted the giant nut high above your head, and even though it's just the one, I don't think anyone would dare call you a one-hit wonder, because season in and season out, and you've bragged about it yourself, you are one of the highest ranked and most feared bots out there that anyone can come across. So like what is left for you at this point, I guess, is my question as a competitor.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's sort of the focus of my life. So it's not like if one of my other hobbies is fishing. So it's not like if I went fishing and I caught, the lake record trout out of a lake, I go, well, you know what? I'm going to retire. I'm not going to go fishing anymore. That's just not how you view your passions in life. So, it's not like I think I've got anything left to prove. It's not like there's any specific goal that I'm after at every event when I go. It's more just, I prepare the whole year to go to this one event. And quite honestly, I'd be lost if I didn't have the event to go to. I mean, that's kind of just what I focus my effort and my free time on. It's a lot more than a hobby. It's a passion, and it's just something that, it's part of who I am. And I couldn't envision not doing it. As long as I'm physically capable of continuing to show up, I'll be there.
Which is great to hear, because I can't really imagine a world of BattleBots without Ray Billings and Tombstone. I mean, yes, I've talked to Justin, and he says you're pretty much retired right now, and that this is what life has brought you as far as what you look forward to each year as BattleBots. And there's been, I think, a few conversations you've had with people where you said at some point you'll hand the controls over to Justin and pass that along. But for right now, I mean, it's just part of the season to see Ray Billings and now Justin out there with Tombstone, and I think it's become a great family affair for you guys, and something for father and son obviously to do.
We've always enjoyed it as a family. My intention is to continue to do that. It's something that we have been able to connect and stay. The thing is, when your kids grow up and they move out and they've got their own lives, it doesn't mean that you don't love them and they don't love you, but they're busy doing their own thing. And it's hard to just set aside time to get together to do things. And so it's great that we have this shared love that, if nothing else, we still schedule time together to go off and do this together. And then it's one of the high points of it for me is that I get to share this with my son, you know.
Did he ever try to talk you into wearing the Reaper costume out there one time?
No, but it was one of those things where, you know, he didn't really ask. He just said, "I'm going to get a Reaper costume. I'm going to wear it in the arena." It's like, all right, well, you knock yourself out, you know, have a good time. So, you know, he definitely likes playing up to some of the TV aspects of it. And you know, if the day comes where we've talked about it, I may pass Tombstone off to him to let him drive that, and he'll be just as glib on camera, and you know, he can handle all the aspects of it. He can certainly play the TV personality if he wants to.
That's awesome to hear. Very exciting to know that the Billings family is clearly all in and around to stay for a while. Probably not so great for other builders around the world to hear, though, that they're going to have to keep dealing with a Tombstone in that bracket, you know, or on their schedule at some point, which leads me to the sort of the running question we've had the past several weeks on the show. I've had the privilege of talking to Victor Soto after his big win over you, and then Andrea and Maddie Vasquez, and then last week was Leanne Cushing. And I said, you know, when Battlebots came back and was on ABC, it was Bite Force, Tombstone, Lockjaw. A lot of these veteran bots were at the tips of everyone's tongues. But now when I go down to the tapings and I interact with the fans, it's people are talking about Whiplash, Witch Doctor, and Valkyrie, and, you know, a few other of these really young team bots. And I said, this is the ushering of possibly the next generation of great drivers and fighters. You as a veteran, when you look out at that landscape, at those people, at those bots and those names, how do you feel about them? Would you share that same feeling that that's the next generation we're witnessing right now?
Oh, of course. You know, the thing is, it's real easy to look at, say, the Vasquez family and go, well, look at this, you know, this wonderful upcoming, fresh young team. And, you know, the reality is that they started before I did. Okay. So they might not have as many matches in the arena as I do, but I bet it's pretty close if you add them all up. Because, you know, Dad's been doing this forever, and the boys grew up in the sport. And so they have all of the pieces that it takes to win a championship. The robot is well built. It's tough. It's always going to work like it's supposed to. They got all the aspects there laid out. And yeah, it's driven incredibly well. So, you know, it's just a matter of time. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to just your opponents and the way the fight tree is laid out. They could win the giant nut right now if they just got the fight tree to sort of go their way. You know, I certainly could say the same thing about the Witch Doctor team. They've been at it for a long time. They are very seasoned veterans of the sport. And, you know, they have all the pieces in place too. It's well built. It's well driven. Any of those up and comers, as you put them, have the ability to go the distance. So it comes down to, you know, a few little preparation changes they might make, and whether the tree falls their way or not. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see either of those teams go the distance.
Oh, yeah, and I told, you know, Jameson Go and Leanne and Andrea, I said, you know, I feel like you guys, because a lot of them were like, well, you know, thank you for that, and it's a real honor to be mentioned in that company. We don't feel that maybe we've earned to be actually in that company yet. And I said, I feel like the production crew might disagree with you because your guys' schedules have not been easy this season. I mean, it's not cupcake matches, you know, it's you guys are being pitted against some of the best bots out there, all 4 fights. And I mean, that's a tall order.
Yeah, no, they're definitely being looked at as a top tier team, but, you know, by both Witch Doctor and Whiplash. I mean, they are being treated as if they are an elite level robot, and that's legitimate. They should be treated that way. You know, there's probably 6 or 7 robots at any BattleBots event that really legitimately have a chance of going the distance. And those robots are in that league now. They're right there.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that what we're witnessing is something great in the world of combat robotics, and I get so excited for the future, and we're not even done with the 2019 season yet. So everybody that I've talked to, dream matchups, they always say, oh, I'd love to fight Tombstone if they haven't, and a lot of them, it's just like, just to be in the box with you, and Tombstone would be such an honor, knowing that it'd probably be a fast knockout for their bot. But on your end, is there a bot that I guess is either still a dream matchup for you, or if you can't answer that, is there a bot out there that scares you?
Yeah, I always look at it. Whoever my next opponent is, that's the only one I need to worry about. So I don't spend a lot of time on that whole what if scenarios, because it's you'll go crazy if you try to.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly some machines that would be tough matchups that I haven't faced yet. So Sonoyachi would fall in that category. I think I'd win, but that's just because you're talking to me. I always think I'm going to win no matter who I'm fighting. But they're the other horizontal hitter out there that's in the same power league as me. It actually wouldn't surprise me if their kinetic numbers are, they might even be a little higher. They pack a wallop. So there's some like that I know would be a tough match. Some of the other there's some verts that would be difficult. Witch Doctors improve year over year. They're one that's always going to be a pain in the butt for me, just the way they're designed and built. So there's some other ones like that I've fought before, but I know would be tough matchups going again. I can't really think of any I'd say, I'm scared of that robot and I just don't want to fight it. Any of the more challenging ones, those would be the ones I'd be looking forward to. But there's certainly some there that stand a really good chance of beating me. I'm not saying I'm going to dominate all of those. There's a lot of really great robots out there now.
And spoken like a true competitor and a champion at that, hopefully we have not seen the last time you hoist a giant nut. But one question that's been burning in the back of my mind, and that is that obviously you have prepared for each season a little differently. This season you actually brought in, 3 different full-on tombstones so that you had a backup and a backup to the backup, where last year you did not do that. But when people go up against you, a lot of them, I feel their mindset is, okay, am I prepared to take 3 minutes worth of punishment from this robot? Not how can I knock this robot out? Because your bot does have weaknesses. You're only sporting 2 tires out there instead of 4, and they're not protected. Why is that? Why has that not changed about Tombstone?
So if I were to try to throw some measure of armor on the outside of those tires, I doubt I could do anything that would be adequate for less than 25 pounds. So where is that weight going to come from? I mean, the reality is everything about a combat robot is compromise. You have to figure out what's best for your particular design. And there isn't anywhere that weight could come from on my robot other than the weapon system. So if I'm going to try to take 20 or 25 pounds out of the weapon system to add armor, would it protect the tires? Yeah, probably. But then I'm no longer Tombstone at that point in time. I'm just, trying to be a brick that has a weapon. Its secret to success is the fact that it is so devoted to making that weapon be the most scary thing it can be. And it would just be a different design challenge to try to armor those things up. And it's not the way I choose to build my robot. It's not that it's not a valid decision. There's a lot of really good robots that have done exactly that. It's just that's not how I choose to make mine.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. And like I said, it was something that I've always been curious about because, you watch the show long enough and you interact with you guys enough times that you start to pick out little things like, well, why didn't they do this or why not that? And you're absolutely right. It is a game of compromise. And I think the fact that your bot is the one that strikes a bit more fear and intimidation into its opponent rather than having to factor in, fear and intimidation on your end speaks volumes for just how big of a competitor you've been over the past several seasons. So congratulations on your success and continuing to be one of the baddest bots in there. You are 3-1 now, and we will wait to see where you're seated in the 16. But I can tell you, after that last match with Gruff, there's probably a lot in the bottom 8 that really hated the outcome of that, because now they're looking at you probably being pretty high up in the top 8, and they're like, man, we got to face Tombstone. And, you can be down, but you're never out. And I think a lot of people learned that this last episode.
Yeah, it's somebody else was asking me about, the ranking aspects, because I've been ranked number 1 the last forever, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, right now, does it look like you're going to be number 1, and does that bother you? And, it's like, as far as the ranking numbers go, as long as you get into that tree of 16 at the end, you're either number 1 or you're one of the other numbers. It doesn't really matter then at that point in time to me. And, I'd be pretty hard-pressed to say that I would be picked number 1 again, because I didn't go undefeated this time going into the tree. So there are other robots I think that could be ranked above me. I'm not going to feel upset if I don't get number 1. But where I get picked and the rest of that, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. You still have to fight whoever they face you up against.
Very true. Again, spoken like a true competitor, and the reason why you are one of the most feared builders and bots out there. The Stone Cold Steve Austin of the robot fighting world, who goes out there looking for the stunner and walks away after he raised a little hell. So Ray Billings, you are a bad man, and it's always an honor and a privilege to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck the rest of the season.
No problem. I'm always glad to talk about my hobby. You know that.
All right, sir. Well, hey, you have a great rest of your night. You take care.
Sounds good. Good talking with you.
And one more big thank you to Ray Billings for taking the time to come back to the F.A.N show. Always good for a laugh and a little bit of insight. Some behind the scenes for you Battlebots fans as we ramp up for the end of the regular season and get closer and closer to the tournament of 16. There are several bots out there looking anxiously for a spot in, well, I guess technically the top 15, because one of the spots has already been claimed by the Desperado tournament winner, Black Dragon. And so we press on and move forward, and we shall see what the remainder of the regular season has in store. Only a few of those most precious episodes and fights left for those wanting to take a bid for the top 16. So we are going to be back next week with an all-new episode and a special guest. Battlebots has not released the fight card for this upcoming episode, but hopefully they will do that soon. So enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Enjoy Battlebots, and we will be back next week. So it's not official unless it's F.A.N show official, and we are officially out of here. Thank you once again, folks. Have a good night.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the F.A.N show.